Mr. Daryl Powell, great to have you on Out of E-League. How you doing? Big week for you, big trip to Wembley. What a way to finish your Cas career.
Oh yeah, it's obviously fantastic that we've got to Wembley. It's with it being my last year, then it adds a little bit more significance. But I'm just looking forward to it. I think the excitement's always there massively around Wembley, and it's a big challenge for us. Obviously, Saints are the best team at the moment, and we've got to play our very best game, I think, to win on Saturday.
Yeah. What's behind you, Daryl? Talk us through the images behind you. So there's some history there then.
Oh yeah, well there's everywhere you look. So Challenge Cup's been awesome for Castleford. I mean, it's 1986 behind us. It started in 1935 when they won the first Challenge Cup. Then 69 and 70 with Ardesty and Epworth, and that was an unbelievably classy team. And yeah, we sort of we look at this all the time and want to be part of that legacy and history. So there's quite a few drivers there behind us.
Is 86 was Hull KR, wasn't it? Is that right?
Yeah.
That was Jamie Sandy. Have you ever seen that flash?
No.
Did you see that final?
No.
Jamie Sandy, was he 5'3", scored a breakaway try against Hull KR. I think it broke my dad's heart. I think my dad drank about 48 pints of Tetleys after that.
He does that anyway.
Yeah. Standard Thursday night.
Yeah.
Look, we'll get stuck into a lot more detail on the Challenge Cup final because really exciting week for you, Daryl. But I want to go right back with you, as we do with a lot of the coaches and players we have on the podcast. When did Daryl Powell first, and what was that moment, fall in love with rugby league?
Yeah, well, I was a footballer really. So coming through school, I played more football than I did rugby league. I ended up playing a game of rugby union that sort of got me interested in contact sport. Don't really see football as a contact sport as such, but yeah. So then I didn't really start playing until I'd left school. So I went to I played for Glasshoughton as an amateur, and then went to Redhill where I bumped into a fella called Walt Watts, who's Liam Watts' granddad, and he was a real smart rugby league man, and he sort of he got me really interested in rugby league. I was 18 then, and I signed for. I ended up bumping into Gary Etheridge and played a final down at Weldon Road, and he offered me a contract to sign for Sheffield. So it sort of started then. I was 18 years of age. So that's late, really. I think you look at today's standards where the scholarships and young people start playing at 7-8 years of age. For me, it was much later than that, and a real late starter. And Sheffield gave me a great opportunity to play professional rugby league. And Gary's. I mean, I think he was only 29 when he set Sheffield up. So that was for him very young, setting a club up in Sheffield. I mean, everyone was thought it was a crazy idea because it's so full of football. But that was my beginning, really late as a teenager, having supported Leeds United as through all my teen years, really.
Would you have missed out? Do you think, Daryl? If you'd have been in the current system, the scholarship system as it is now, would that have catered for somebody like you who developed so late?
Maybe. I'm not a massive believer in scholarships, if I'm honest, as it's progressed. I just think I do think it hurts the amateur game a little bit, and for people like myself who get into the game late or develop late for whatever reason, then there is potential that you do miss some young men who can be really good rugby league players. So yeah, there is potential in that.
Do you know what I find interesting there is that Daryl obviously said he was a late developer, but also playing standoff. I think it's quite rare to be a late developer and playing a key decision-making position. Usually, players who play 6, 7, 9 have played it since a young age, and they've mastered the skill involved and they know the game inside out. But to play probably standoff for most of your career, it's quite rare for you to be a late developer as well, I think.
Yeah, well, I didn't play standoff initially, so I'm trying to think what weight I would have been then. I'd have probably been about 84 kilos when I first started playing, but I was a centre initially. Gary Etherington actually made me captain at 19 and put me in at loose forward to get my hands on the ball a little bit more. I was always pretty aggressive and liked to get involved in the middle. And it was more playing at 13 that sort of got me really interested in the game and the way it was played in different. And I think I've been fortunate to play in different positions. So at 19 years of age, I was made captain, and I was playing at 13. And then it wasn't until sort of later in my career that I started to play more six. So I was late. I think it's similar to Gary Schofield. I mean, Gary Schofield, he was an international player when I was still making my way in the second division, but he played a lot at centre and then ended up developing as a really good standoff. So I think it helps. I really think it helps coaches to play in different positions, because if you play one position all your career, how do you understand the different elements of performance and skill sets that are needed, mentalities that are needed? For me, being able to play in the middle, which I did later on in my career at Leeds as well, I think really helped me to understand the game as a whole across so many different positions.
Your first experience, Daryl, of coaching was when you were at Keighley Cougars, which was sort of in the late 90s, when you were obviously still playing and you were a player coach. By the way, Keighley Cougars, fan of Keighley Cougars recently, Alistair Campbell, did you know that? Alistair Campbell was probably on the terraces cheering you on back in the that was during the Blair era as well.
In the corporate box.
From number 10 up to the terraces at the Cougars. But what were those days like, Daryl, when you were a player coach then, and how different do you think you are now as a coach from that kid essentially starting out as a player coach?
Yeah, massively. I had a great time at Keighley. I just what an awesome club. I actually signed there on April Fool's Day. Well, it was bizarre, really. So it was around the time when Super League was first coming in, and I was at Sheffield Eagles, and I'd been there 11 years, and I was ready for a new challenge. And they offered me a contract, but I had to sign on April the 1st to be eligible for the Premiership playoffs. So I signed on April Fool's Day. I think it was 3 days later, Super League came in. Keighley didn't get promoted, and I ended up stuck in the second division. It was unbelievable how it all happened, and I didn't get a loyalty bonus. They were getting players were getting loyalty bonuses everywhere. And I ended up in the second division, and I didn't get a loyalty bonus. But I had an awesome time.
You're not bitter about that, the loyalty
bonus?
No,
because I actually went down to Wembley with the Keighley players a couple of years back, and they were just awesome people, and it was such a Phil Lardo as a coach. It was a great environment. The players were fantastic, and I had a wonderful time there. And then later on, obviously, I got my first coaching opportunity as player coach myself and Simon Irving. And yeah, it was a great experience. We actually beat Halifax in the Challenge Cup, who were in the first division at the time, as it was then. And yeah, it was good. And look, you evolve, don't you, massively as a coach, as you do as a player, and then you do as a coach. And the game's so different now. I mean, I look back over time and see and watch the game when I played, and I wonder what it'd be like to coach me. I don't think I'd enjoy being coached by me. I'd get a bit of stick, I think. But yeah, the game was so different, and as a coach, you know, even the time where I spent in rugby union, where I'd come out of rugby league to coach rugby union, I think that was for 3 years. Yeah, and when I went back into rugby league, you're like going, wow, the game has evolved so much in 3 years, and it's continuing to do all that now with some of the rule changes. So yeah, you just have to evolve and change yourself on a regular basis, I think.
I often ask coaches this, and they find it a really hard question to answer. I don't know why, but I'll ask you, and we'll see how we get on with it. How do you describe yourself as a coach, and what are the sort of the big yeses and the big nos for Daryl Powell?
Well, look, I like a good culture. I think your workplace should be it should be interesting, exciting. You should be stimulated. You should look forward to coming here. There should be some fun in there, but there also needs to be intensity and focus and discipline as well. So don't turn up late. Don't come in kit that doesn't belong to us as a club. I think all those discipline things are important. I want people to come and learn and grow, and I want people to believe in what we stand for. So, giving players a purpose, which I always believe in, and then I want players to just grab hold of it and go with it, and be a team, be a really strong, believe in what we're doing as a team. I think all of those things are really important to me.
Yeah, well, that's a really interesting conversation I want to have with you. A few minutes down the line, because when you came to Cass, that was one of your biggest challenges, wasn't it, of changing the culture and changing that relationship with the supporters and the club, which you've obviously managed to do in those 11 years that you've been there. But just rewinding before Cass, when you went to Leeds and got the Leeds job, obviously a massive job, and that was you on the map at a huge club like the Leeds Rhinos. You've said in hindsight that came too soon in your coaching career. Just elaborate on that bit for us, Daryl.
Yeah, well, I'd been retired for 3 months, so I didn't think that was a great apprenticeship, to be honest. And I was doing the youth development job, and I was just getting my teeth into that, and I was coaching people like Rob Burrow and Danny Maguire, Ryan Bailey, Matt Diskin, Matt Calderwood.
You gave those debuts out, didn't you, to those boys, those guys who came on to become stars?
Yeah. To a few of them, and I mean they were easy debuts. I mean they were such class young players. Yeah, it was easy that. So yeah, it was an interesting one. I mean, I actually got a knock on my on window at 10:30 at night, and it was Gary Etherington.
Again,
so
bloody Gary,
chasing me everywhere. So I let him in, and he says, "I want you to be head coach." I said, "Absolutely no way. I just don't think I'm ready at all." And he went, and my wife Janice said to me, "Why don't you do it?" I said, "It's just too soon." I said, "I've got 3 months. I'm just out of playing," and I had a relationship with all those players who were still playing, which is, obviously going to be one of the most difficult things. So then the next day he came again and knocked on my door. I think it was a similar time, about 10:30 at night.
It's not right, that.
It's not right.
No, I know. I never told him where I lived after that. I thought
we'll know if the doorbell goes in the next 10 minutes who it is.
Yeah. So I ended up accepting the job, and look, it was a steep learning curve. I remember walking into training thinking, wow, this is a bit scary. This
you felt out of your depth.
Well, I'm going and coaching players that I'd played with, and I had friendship. You always have some players who you're a little bit closer to it in a group. That's just the way it is. That's the way life is. And so you had to dispel any sort of idea that you're going to have favourites. You have to be fair with everybody. So that was always going to create a little bit of difficulty. And I hadn't had a great initiation as a coach. I had experience at Keighley, but I still thought it was too early. But look, I got stuck into it, and there was a similar thing there. I think that the culture had slipped a little bit. Graham Murray, he'd been unbelievable. I just thought he was just a class man and a class manager and coach. And he'd gone, and Dean Lance had come in, and it slipped a little bit. And it wasn't all Dean's fault. I thought that the playing group sort of lost its respect for some of the things that we should have stood for. And I thought that needed changing straight away, and the young players were a part of that. And it was always going to take some time to turn that around. But yeah, it was tough. It was 2.5 years I did the job, and there were some tough things in there.
Was that your most challenging time when you look back and look? You're still a baby in coaching years, aren't you? At 55, when you think that someone like Wayne Bennett's in his 70s and still going, you're probably going down that same route. But do you think that when you think about adversity you've had in your career, that was one of the biggest challenges? Because essentially, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but from the outside, you had to, after Leeds, go and rebuild yourself, and you went to Featherstone, and you had some amazing times there and got them up, from the Championship, and had an incredible set of memories there. But was that a time where you had to just go and readjust and reset and think, how am I going to get to the top level consistently?
Yeah, so after a couple of years, there are a couple of different things that happened in there, but Gary offered me the opportunity to become sort of a director of rugby almost, and go and look around at different environments and study coaching. And part of that was a 4-year contract, which people think I got the sack, but that didn't actually happen. I was given a 4-year contract, 2 years. Tony Smith would take over, and I would come out of coaching, and I would go. I went to England Rugby Union, for example. I went over to Australia and went around numerous clubs and I had a look at what they were doing. And then I had a 2-year contract to go back in as head coach. But what happened in the first year is my last year is we got to the Challenge Cup final, lost by 2 points to Bradford, and then we were 1 game away from the grand final. So it was a pretty good year. But the year after, they won the comp. So then what Gary did, he extended Tony's contract by another year, and then extended mine by another year. But that meant I wouldn't be coaching for another year, and I just didn't really want to do that. I just felt it was too long out of coaching. So that's when I went to Rugby Union. And yeah, it took a while then, but I do think the Championship is an outstanding breeding ground for young coaches, young British coaches. And Featherstone was fantastic. Again, another place that I had an unbelievably good time and enjoyed so many good memories. And again, changing and building a culture, which because that's one of the most important things a coach can do. If you build a strong culture that everybody believes in, then that's the foundation that everything comes from. And I had a good opportunity to do that, then at Leeds and then at Featherstone. And then obviously it just gave me so much belief that I could then do it at Castleford.
Daryl, you just touched on a bit earlier that you went into different clubs, different organisations to get a bit of inspiration and knowledge from. Has there been any teams or coaches that have particularly impressed you and you've used some of their philosophies into your own coaching career?
I don't. When I went to Australia, so I went around quite a few clubs. I didn't really spend enough time in any. If I had my time again, I would spend maybe a couple of weeks in an organisation to really get under the skin of it and see the detail and be in all the meetings. But that didn't really happen. I think I got some good things from England Rugby Union when I went down there and watched them. And it was just after they'd won the World Cup in 2003. And there were some really good things that they were doing from a leadership perspective and some of the real detail that Clive Woodward had looked at. So that I found that really interesting. But I think more the coaches that I've been fortunate enough to play under people like Graham Murray and Malcolm really was a great inspiration. Gary Etherington did things a little bit different, and his ability to think outside the box I always thought was something that was pretty special, and he did some amazing things. But I don't think any real club. I don't think I spend enough time at a club. I don't think we've been out of the game long enough to spend enough time at a club for long enough to pick up too much from that regard.
So after Featherstone, because obviously with Featherstone at the time, you'd had some great seasons, but actually never got promoted because of the licensing system that was in place at the time, wasn't it? But then you ended up in your last season having an unbelievable victory over the team that you were about to join, Cass, in the Challenge Cup. So you arrive at Castleford and you get this contract. And this is a club that, from your teenage years, you used to watch on the terraces, a local boy.
Yeah. So all the way through my teenage years, I used to come and watch. Well, I came and watched reserve games as well. So I was massive into Castle. Go home and away. So yeah, that was for me to get the coaching job was it was the only job that I really wanted to do after Featherstone at that time. I just felt like there was so much that could be changed here, and I could see that I always felt like it was an easy fix, to be honest. Thought the culture needed changing. You know that if you can grab hold of the fans by the way that the game's played at the club, then it's a classic. Cass has always been the way that this club's been known as, and I felt that had been lost a little bit, and it needed to be grabbed back. So, I just thought it was the ideal opportunity for me to step up and prove that I could do the job consistently well at this level.
Just tell us a bit more about that, because I'm really interested in, you said it was an easy fix, and obviously you cited just there that connection with the fans and the relationship with you being one. Obviously it was an easier fix because you knew the club inside out from watching them for so many years. But what was the first sort of point where you thought something needs to change?
No, straight away, really. So I think you've got to give a group of people a motivating purpose, haven't you? As well, why are they doing something? So and that they can be small things. They can be broken down over months, weeks, and months. But then it's what do you actually want to achieve? So I tried to do that straight away. And obviously, look, this is the way we behave. This is where I think we need to go about our work. And then make sure that you walk the walk almost. You've got to live by the standards and make sure that you drive those on a day-to-day basis. And then it's, well, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? What do we want to achieve? And you could see that you know pretty much you're not going to get everybody all at once. So then it's about building relationships and getting people to believe in what you're doing. And I think that turned around pretty quickly. You know, we were able to sort of make progress in 2013. And then 2014 was a breakout year where all the little stories that you tell about where we can get to started to come to fruition. And when we got to Wembley and lost to Leeds, we didn't really play as well as we could have done. And we were one game away from a league leaders shield. We went away to Catalan, and we were a bit busted, really. Challenge Cup final takes a fair bit out of you in terms of the back end of the season because you don't get any rests anywhere. But it was an awesome season. I think that everybody believed that we were going places and we could be a consistent top 4 team, which had been pie in the sky, really. So it was about all those little stories that helped us to get where we needed to, and it was about relationships and signing players that were my kind of players, And I think I've been criticised every single year for the signings that I've made at Castleford, but we've ended up, getting the best out of those players and being consistently in the top 4, top 5 playoffs. So all those little stories and those motivating purposes that you're aiming for are really important, I think.
Belief's such an interesting one for me in sport because, for Daryl going into Castleford, who had a sort of tricky period in the club's history, to go in and then get a group of men to, you set some lofty ambitions, let's say. You say we want to win the Challenge Cup, we want to be in the top 4 or 5 in the league, but getting guys to believe it is maybe one of the biggest challenges, Daryl, right? To get people aligned with the vision that you had for the club.
Yeah, I think and winning something and helping people to get better, it needs them to buy in, and it's about helping them to achieve their potential. And there's some players who they're not quite there yet, but they can play international football. Other players, it's just about being the very best that they can be. And because I always felt myself that I was never physically gifted. I wasn't really fast. I don't think I ever got above 90 kilos. But I wanted to play to the very best of my ability every time I took the field and every time I came to training. And I think that's something that we try and get at the club, is that some players are self-motivated, others need a little bit of push, and it's you understanding them and that relationship that you've got with them that's so important. So all those small developments, small improvements, because they improve by 4 or 5%, end up making the team so much greater than the sum of its parts. And I think that's what has been our greatest success. Is players have come here who there might have been one other club wanting to sign them, but none of the top teams are wanting to sign them. And I think we've helped them to grow to be the very best that they can be. And for me, that's coaching. I think that's what it's all about. Obviously, it's about success and winning things. And I've always believed I've been a winner in everything that I've done. You don't always win the top prize, but I think that's been our big success.
Is that a kind of Moneyball approach that when you talk about the players that you've signed, and obviously, you've not been competing with the other top clubs for those players because they haven't been interested, but you've, as you said earlier, got the best and stretched the most out of those players' potential. How much analysis is done with their sort of, what you see as their future potential when you're looking at these guys to bring them in?
Yeah, we do a lot of work on that. And I think it's coach's eye, isn't it? In terms of, we signed. I'll give you an example. Dennis Solomona, who I watched him play at London, and I thought he was incredibly lazy. And then he came training at the first fitness session. I was like, wow, yeah, I was right. He is incredibly lazy. But what he was a physical specimen who you knew could do special things if you could get under his skin and get him doing the right sort of things. And well, we were proved right then. I'm disappointed he didn't stay at the club longer, but I think Mike McMeekin was another one. He came. He was 92 kilos when he came. We signed him from London. He's 112 now. He's playing fantastic. And I think it's all those little things of where are the diamonds in the rough. And Alex Foster came to us, and he was he was really struggling, but he ended up, he loved the environment, and he just grew on. There's numerous. I mean, I think Paul McShane was going to go part-time before he came to us, and what a fantastic player he has been and still is. So I think it's the coach's eye and all that's so important.
Yeah, and as well, I don't think there's been a coach in Super League that has developed players more than what Daryl has, in terms of bringing on those individual stories. Daryl, there's 4 or 5, like really standout stories, from nothing to then being international players. I think
three man of steals.
Yeah, that individual development of players really comes through from your period at Castleford, Daryl. There's some really standout developments of individual players. How much do you look into the psychology of working with those guys? And you say about them, finding a nugget to motivate them. How much psychology is there in that? How much detail goes into your thought process?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not just me either. So there's obviously Danny Howar's here a fair while, and Ryan Sheridan's he's a smart dude. So we're always talking and debating. Steve Mills, our analysis guy, he's got a real good thought process around the game. But yeah, and again, I've spoke about it's relationships, isn't it? It's understanding players, and you don't get it right all the time. You can't get everybody, but I think it's that understanding a player, how he ticks, how do you push his buttons. Some players you don't have to too much. People like Michael Shenton, Grant Millington, I think Paul McShane now. They're self-driven. You might help them a little bit technically here and there, but it's knowing the players that you need to get after and or put an arm round, or they need driving. And I just think it's all relationships. Coaching so much about relationships, whether it's individually or it's the team itself. It's how do you make all that work?
And it seems from the outside as well that there's a big part of that motivation is proving people wrong. Whether you had that in your career, in your playing days, or your early coaching days, that you I don't know, it's not all down to you, it's down to the player. They've got to put in more than half probably, but you have this ability to motivate people, to prove people that they've still got more to give, and turning people into man of steels. I mean, who would have thought? You guys wouldn't have thought Paul McShane would have been a man of steel, would you?
Yeah, I think sometimes it's proving them wrong. Because you get your head stuck in terms of where you are, and it's actually, well, you can do this. So I look at Liam Watson, think he should be an international player, and he's slowly getting back towards that. But I always thought Paul McShane should be an international player. Luke Gale, I was after him massively, and it took him a while. He was a sort of a late bloomer, Gailey. He came here and really grew. And it's massively about the player. Coaching's about, it's just helping players, isn't it, to just grow 1%, 2%, 3%. They've got to do it. They've got to get out there and put the body on the line, and they've got to go out and practice religiously on the things that they want to get better at. But I keep going back to it. It's just the relationships with players and giving them a reason why. And just getting them to, and I hear players a lot talking about, I want to prove people wrong. I was always like that, to be honest. I mean, I remember Steve-O used to give me a hard time all the time when I was playing international football. I was playing the centres for Great Britain, and he was always saying I shouldn't have been playing. And that
Was
used
he
to
right?
wind me
Was
up
he
and
right?
drive me to. He probably was, yeah, but the coach picked me, didn't he? I mean, you know, I wasn't that bothered about it. What he was thinking is what the coach was thinking.
Yeah.
Look, you boys have both been to Cass many times to play against different Daryl Powell teams that he's evolved over those 10, 11 years he's been there. What are those experiences like when you rock up at the jungle?
It's
as an
my
away
favourite
team?
ground actually to play at. I loved it because the crowd's on top of you. It's the distance between the touchline and the fencing is like a metre, so you feel a great atmosphere. It's always partisan, and I think it's a good team to play against Cass because they always, like you say, you throw the ball around quite a bit and you're classy and you try and play it in the right way, but. I think they're quite an industrious team as well in terms of they work. Your teams have always worked really hard for each other, haven't you? Your middles aren't always the showiest, but they'll graft for each other, and that culture and that ethos they've got in the team is something that's really hard to beat. I think.
Could it be an intimidating place, Wilco, to go?
Yeah. I love it because it's short field. You know, you're always in good ball, so you're always playing a bit. It always feels like you're playing a bit at Cass. Oh, that's
Dinner jacket.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, I used to enjoy. We've had some great games there. I mean, that last minute semi-final, which was a great game. You know, where Luke Gale kicks the drop goal. Ryan Morgan.
Oh yeah.
I'm never forgiving Ryan Morgan. So he obstructed Michael Shenton. No need. Ben Barber had the ball in his hands. Ben Barber's gone.
Yeah.
And Ryan Morgan. That cost us, Daryl. That cost us.
But you're not there.
Your moment.
Yeah, well, that was the game where my wife Janice was crying in the stand. You know, because it looked like Saints were gonna win the game. It was funny because I just straight after that I went on Dave Howe's tour to Australia, and we went on a boat trip. And Paul Langmack, who used to play for Australia, he pulled me and says, "Oh, Daryl Powell," he says, "It's been great watching your team this year." And Janice was stood at the side of me. He says, "Hang on a minute, is this your wife?" I said, yeah, it is. He pushed me out of the way and said, "I couldn't believe it when you were crying on television." It was so intense to watch it. He just got rid of me. I was like, "Oh, fair enough."
Get out of here, Daryl. Let me talk to
Get
you.
out of the way, yeah. I left her to it.
And they've been together ever since. It's that.
Yeah.
Look, something I picked up on you saying about 20 minutes ago, Daryl, which I found was quite interesting, was you said that you can be at a club and you can need a new challenge. And obviously we all know you're off to Warrington for next season, which is going to be interesting for you, isn't it? Because you've been at Cass so long and you're having to take everything you've built as a coach over to Warrington and go through a whole other culture change and do everything that you did 10, 12 years ago. But do you think as a coach that ideas can get stale, that you do need to move after a period of time? Because it's been a hell of a long time there.
Yeah, I think you need to know when the time is, and I think I was right at Featherstone. I think I've been right at Castleford. I think there's only so long. I mean, there are coaches that have booked that trend. Obviously, Wayne Bennett did it in rugby league, and Craig Bellamy's done it. He's been unbelievable at Melbourne. And there's examples in football, but I do think everybody's different, aren't they? Every person's different, and not everybody can stay at a club for that long. And I think for me, I just got a sense. I mean, I had another year left on my contract, and I tried to give the club the very best possible chance to replace me with the right man. And I just felt I just wanted freshening up. I think the club needed it, and I think I needed something that was just going to drive me a little bit. Not that I'm not driven this year, but I just felt it was the right time. And that's why this year I just want to enjoy this year, which is pretty difficult with COVID at the moment. But yeah, and I do think you can be at a place too long. And I've always believed that I know when it was the right time to finish as a player, and I think I do as a coach when to move on. And I do think this is a perfect time.
It's a different challenge, Warrington, Daryl, isn't it? Different challenge. They've obviously resourced up. Certainly in terms of the playing roster have invested heavily in that, and it's almost a different challenge, Daryl, that, isn't it? Because you've been working those, working at the rough edges, making diamonds out of coal or whatever. Whereas at Warrington, that you've got a pretty established and experienced squad there.
Yeah, and but everybody's got improvement in them, haven't they? I think and again, it's just getting in there and putting your mark on something. And you don't really know until you get in there what the culture's like. They're obviously they're doing really well this year. They're really tough to beat. But look, for me, I just want to get in, and once I've finished this big challenge this year, you get in and see what everything's about, and you put your own mark on things, and then you take it from there. So yeah, but obviously big challenges wherever you go. There's big challenges in different ways, and that's the beauty of it. Being able to take on a different challenge. I don't think I obviously been at Leeds, and that was a huge challenge, as we've already spoke about, and this is just another one and another chapter after what's been an awesome time at Castleford.
Well, how much of that opening period are you looking and listening? I'm interested in Daryl Powell's first week, or in the presidency in the US, they do the first 100 days, don't they? Like what would your activity be, Daryl, in that first instance of getting in?
Well, relationships. It's people. It's finding out about the individuals and where they're at. And I think for me, is you don't go in with a sledgehammer anywhere. I think it's you go in and you find out what's good, what are your best things, what do you think needs to improve, and they'll know. Players will know as better than anybody. They're in there. So yeah, that for me, that's it. It's find out about the people, where they're at, what they're doing, what do they need, what do they need the most, and then it's take it from there. So you won't find a sledgehammer from me. It's more about the relationship side of it, first of all, as individuals, and then it's about the group and how it works together.
Does that excite you, the idea of building those new relationships? Because when you've been at a club like Castleford for over a decade, you know everyone, from the person washing the kits to, you know their psyche, what makes everyone at that club tick, including obviously all the playing staff as well. And you've got to essentially start all of that again. I mean, that's quite an exhausting process.
Yeah, well, it is, but it's something that I say to my girls all the time is you have to go into uncomfortable situations. You have to be comfortable doing that. I think it's really important that you don't back away from that. Otherwise, you'd just want to feel comfortable all the time. So I don't worry about that at all. About going anywhere and just talking to people, new people, new relationships. And that's quite exciting, finding out about people and then seeing where their 4, 5, 6% are in terms of development. And yeah, I do find that really exciting, and that's why new challenges are so invigorating and take you to another level, because you're striving to be even better every time. Well, every time you come into work, you're striving to be better at everything you do. So
but then I guess at the same time, Daryl, it's like you took your time to build you as a coach at Cass and build those relationships, and you're going to have to do that at Warrington. But obviously you're at a big club and you're going to be under immediate scrutiny for, as you know, in a results-based business at a top club like Warrington, and it's got to click straight away. It's got to click quick, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you can't do it without getting everybody together and understanding what they're about. So the way that the game's played, then that's going to need to be pieced together pretty quickly. But I've got experience of doing that. As a coaching team, we've got experience of doing that. So I don't see that as being a major problem. You've got a pre-season to embed all those things, and they're pretty good players. These boys, they can play the game.
Jeez. I find it's a weird dynamic in rugby league, because obviously you don't get it in other sports where, or for months obviously we've known about you going to Warrington, and with players when a top player signs in the NRL, but they've still got 20-odd games to play for their club. You don't get that in football. In football, it's the case of when the summer suddenly, look, he's going to join here, and it's been kept reasonably quiet. Whereas, you've known you've been leaving Cass for a while, despite all the success you've had there, and still having it to give it this one massive push, and with Wembley on the horizon and everything as well. It's quite strange, I imagine.
Yeah, I tell you what was strange is when fans came back in, and because I'm not on social media, so I don't know what people say. I'm not bothered about that. But then you come back in and I'm leaving, and I'm like, I don't know how people are gonna take this. So it ended up being really intriguing, and And then I think my first game was down here, and then the second game was at Warrington with fans back in. So I saw Sod's Law, like when we drew them in the Challenge Cup semi-final. You just think, I know that's going to happen. I know it's going to happen, and that's been reasonably uncomfortable. But I think it's got past that now. I think it's got to the point where, look, we're just cracking on. You know that I believe in this place and I love this place, and I'm not going to do anything that's going to hurt it. I want to leave Castleford in the best possible place, and then I want to really rip into the new challenge that I've got ahead of me, and yeah, both are really exciting.
There must be sadness though to leave after all that time.
Oh yeah, I'll be crying my eyes out, 100%. I know I don't get that emotional that often, but leaving here is going to be one of those times where it's going to be a real wrench, and there's some players leaving as well that have been here longer than me. So the end of the season, there's so much motivation to do well. We're going to have to crack on after this Challenge Cup in the league because we're losing ground. But yeah, there's a lot of motivation, and it will be a wrench, 100%. It's going to be difficult. You can't be at a place as long as I've been and not be really gutted to leave emotionally.
I loved Carl Fitzpatrick's quote, obviously Warrington CEO, talking about recruitment with you, essentially, which you need to be a part of, even though you're at another club for 2022. And he says felt like cheating on his wife while Steve Price was still there.
Yeah,
difficult situation.
Well, for both it is, isn't it? So I had a chat with Steve soon after. I mean, he made the decision to leave. I'd made the decision to leave here. There was nothing underhand there, by the way. I was, I mean, I needed a job. I'd said, look, I'm leaving at the end of the year, and I'm saying to my wife, I'll be all right. I'll get a job, and she's saying, well, you need to, don't you? So. Yeah, it was interesting. It's an interesting dynamic, obviously, and we've played them. We've played them a couple of times now already, and 3 times already, and we've got them the last game of the season. So yeah, it's just interesting, isn't it? But I think all that's gone now. I think they're cracking on and doing pretty well under Steve, and we're in a final on Saturday, and. Things like this happen all the time. I don't know why people jump up and down too much. It's people leave clubs and join clubs, and coaches move on every single year. There's hardly ever any year where a squad is the same. Players move on, they retire, or they join different clubs, and you're always evolving and building a new team. And I don't know why people get so under the collar. Just crack on.
Yeah, it's part of the sort of the narrative about Cass this year, though, is the end of your sort of tenure as coach. A lot of senior players retiring, and as a coach, like, storytelling's important, and it building a reason maybe why. It's quite a lot of powerful reasons why you should do well this weekend. Yeah,
and we did that quite a lot for the semi-final, because that was obviously a massive game. And we got pumped by Leeds the week before. And the boys there were a couple of boys kicking off in the changing room saying, we can't brush this under the carpet. I said, fellas, if we win next week, you can forget about this game. And that's exactly what happened. So I said, we are moving on. We are moving on to Warrington, and that's what we did. And there were some real good stories there. There were some guys just crying their eyes out in the team meeting, because they were talking from the heart. They were talking. There are quite a few players who weren't going to be here next year, and we were building this around legacy and what we want to leave, and all those emotions and all those stories from the floor, from players who are going to be out there and giving everything. That was so emotive, and then we've got obviously the opportunity as a result of what we did in the semi-final. We've got an opportunity to go. We know we're facing the best team in the comp at the moment, but we know our best game is a challenge for anybody, and that's what we've got to do this week. And like you said, there are so many reasons for us to do that. I'm one of them, but there's so many more than me. And so it'll be there on Saturday, 100%. The spirit and the drive, and it's all about our game and how well we can play.
it can be incredibly powerful that when you kind of before a big game. I've had it a couple of times where you talk amongst the playing group on the reasons why, and when Daryl said earlier about relationships, I think when you can play against or play with somebody and train with them every day, but you don't always know that reason why. And I think in a big match, knowing why that guy next to you is doing what they're doing and learning about it is incredibly powerful, because it just makes you go that little extra little percent that can win a match.
The timing of it's really important, though. You know, I think, you know, really. I think looking back on my career, like really smart use of those emotional like triggers was, you know, I was really powerful. I felt sometimes they were overused, you know, like you can do it too much, can't you? The old heart, you know, like the really heartfelt like desire to win stuff. And I think it's Brian McDermott when we were at Toronto, he held a team meeting and it was maybe 10 days out from a big game. And I felt strange at the time, you know, we had a game in between, but he held this meeting and it was all the emotional stuff, you know, families sending messages and all that. But so managing that emotion in a week like this week, Daryl's huge, isn't it? Getting that right.
Yeah. Well, you don't want it too close to the game, do you? See, blokes will be running out on the field. You want to rip people's heads off. So you know, you've got to keep a lid on it. But yeah, I think there's a couple of different stories that maybe are not quite as emotional, but still mean something. So. There's some of them. There's some connections to the history that you can use. That again, they're not emotion, but they are ties and they are drivers. So yeah, I think getting the balance right is really important, and you know we try our best to do that. We haven't done anything today. Today's been pretty low key. We'll start to build it up from Wednesday, and then we'll travel down Thursday. So yeah, I think you're exactly right. You've got to get those in the right place.
And obviously, with all the the COVID protocols and stuff, quite rightly, you stayed away from us today, and you which is the right thing to do, the safe thing to do. But I mean, it's crazy at the moment, isn't it? With we talked with Ian Blease recently about this and COVID protocols at Super League clubs compared to the way it's run in the Premier League and just the finances behind the whole thing. In that sense, you throw in COVID, you throw in the emotion of you not far from leaving. This week has been a sort of. Quite an emotional one, but a crazy one, isn't it? In the build up to Wembley.
Well, the last few weeks have really. I mean, we haven't played much football really because we had a game called off a couple of weeks back against St Helens. Then we were supposed to play on Tuesday, and that got called off. And then I decided to put a bunch of young bucks out there yesterday, which was awesome actually. I saw some of the young players' performance under a fair bit of pressure was great. But it's so difficult at the moment. You are 100% right. It's so difficult that you're getting tested all the time. You've got masks on in meetings. And the country's just about to release the pressure valve a little bit, but we're not, because if we do, then games get called off. So yeah, it's awkward. But we have got to put that to one side this week. Not the way we deal with it, but mentally we've got to just forget about all of that and really drive forward with the way we want to play the game and not be distracted by anything.
And look, you won't want to make this about you. With obviously there's still so much time in the regular season to go as well before you eventually leave Cass and head to Warrington. But what would that mean for you in your final season if you could pull one over Saints?
Oh, look, it'd just be incredible. I think. There's only two competitions in Rugby League, and obviously there's the League Leaders Shield. But this is the first one up, and we're here with an opportunity. I don't think many people give us a chance. I think St Helens are flying, but that just gives us a little bit more. To be honest, in terms of drive, for me, it'd be absolutely awesome. It'd be one of the best feelings in the world for me to be able to do this. It's it's an iconic tournament at an iconic venue, and the club has got such a rich history. 4-time winners of the Challenge Cup. So for us to put our indelible mark on that history would be awesome.
Yeah, it'll be a slightly different atmosphere. But no, they're probably still cleaning the place up after all the mess from that final against City. I don't think there'll be people sticking flares up their arseholes in Leicester Square, will there?
You never know, Cass. You must see an orange flare going off.
There might be a few of them.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, well, I think there could be. I think that if they get a win, there could be anything.
Does that happen in the jungle? I don't know. Does that?
It could. Yeah, never write anything off. Anything's possible.
Yeah. Look, Daryl, we've kept you for long enough, mate, and you've got a big week ahead. So thank you so much for coming on, and great to hear old stories all the way back to the days of the Keighley Cougars and your time at Sheffield, and right up until this event for you against Wilco's old boys and Flash.
Yeah. Just tell Gary Etherington to stop knocking on your door at 10. That's weird. That's not right, that, is it? You're expecting bad news at 10.
Yeah. No. He's got no concept of time.
Just lurking in a tree outside his window. I mean, it is amazing, really, just before we let Daryl go, when you think also modern day Super League, when will we see coaches stay at clubs as long as he has in the future? It's a rarity, isn't it, these days?
Yeah, it's incredibly rare, and I think it speaks of the volumes of the relationships, like he's mentioned, that he's built, and that he clearly understands progress and how people and athletes like to progress as individuals. It's nothing worse than standing still, and there's one thing Castleford haven't done over the last 10 years is stand still. Yeah. It's been a constant progression towards competing with the top teams, and then the big challenge is getting one of those trophies, as Daryl's well aware of. Then it is down to an element of luck and fortune on the day. But yeah, an incredible career at Castleford, and when you're looking at a team like Warrington, love Steve Price. I think he's a great fellow, but you feel like Daryl's philosophy could really make an impact on a club like that that's got all of the resources to do.
And look, Daryl, you've got to say all the right things when you join a club. Obviously, I want to be here, and I want to, for years and years and years to come. But realistically, can you see yourself having a decade at a club again?
Oh yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, it's only 8 years here. It's not that long. So but I could see. I think Castleford's a classy club, and Warrington, I just think they've got so much class about the way they do things. So, but you never know. I'm moving over there. You move over to the dark side. So
here we go. Here we go. Yeah. You get a sweaty top lip as soon as he gets over the Pennines.
I'll take my umbrella and my Yorkshire flag, and off we go.
And look, you're not even out the door yet, and I'm asking you questions like this. But could you ever see yourself going back? Because you've left such a legacy at the Jungle.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, somebody asked me about coaching England the other day, and I'm like, well, I don't know. I've got a job in front of me. And I just don't believe in looking too far ahead. I don't think there's any need, otherwise you're not committed to what you're doing. So, look, I'm going to go and commit myself 100% like I always do. Get completely embedded in the club, its history, the supporters, everything that they stand for. And then I'll see where that takes me. But, I want to be hugely successful there like I always do. And then, like I say, look, I'm always open. But I've got a 3-year contract at Warrington, and I'll be really getting stuck into that.
Well, if you've got a rough location that you're moving to, Gary Etherington's just been on. He said he don't want to be driving around the streets trying to find you.
The private gates, they've got the gates on. It's not getting in.
Get some dogs, get some big dogs, big Rottweilers. Daryl, top man, really good man for coming on and spending so much time with. I hope you have a great week at Wembley. Hope it all works out for you, and we'll speak to you again very soon. Thanks, mate.
Yeah, cheers, Daryl. Good luck. Good luck for Saturday.
Cheers.
There we go. That's Daryl Powell. We'll have a new episode for you every week. Give us a little follow at Out of Your RL on Twitter, and we shall see you in 7 days' time.